Good morning. Let's get Facebook in here. We can start the show. Rocking and rolling. Boom and boom. All right. Welcome in. Welcome in. It is Monday morning. It's March. Combine is already come and gone. Fun times. I am Nick Kendall. This is Eric Trickle with me, as always, on your Monday and Friday mornings during the highlights of the off season, at least. Eric, how are you doing? Happy Monday morning to you. I got my workout in already. Got my protein in. I'm ready to. I'm trying to start to get that consistency back since the move from Seattle out to Denver. I started my job like November 15th. Then it's Thanksgiving, unpacking the house, the holidays, and it's with a 2-year-old as well. It's kind of hard to find that routine. But since my bout of food poisoning on what was that, the Super Bowl day? God, I was sick out of my mind. I won't say which restaurant, but out here in Denver. But since I think the 9th, I've been working out consistently 5 days a week. So getting it, alarm set for 4:15 a.m. So I can't really complain too much because you're doing that to talk football. But we got the workout in. Coffee's fresh. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing well. I'm really tired after this weekend. I mean, it was a bunch of 16, 18-hour days over the last few days. Watching over the combine, watching over the drills, doing all the stuff that I do after that to try to bring everybody the best draft coverage that I can. So it's been some long days and I'm exhausted. I'm glad it's over, but I'm also sad because I said enjoy that time, but it is now uh, in that transition phase of redoing, going over everything from the combine with the athletic testing, plugging that all into my board and my grades, and now flipping it over and transitioning to getting out scouting reports, which some will be, I think, the end of this week is the weekend is when I'm looking at getting the first one out. So keep an eye out for that. I still have some combine stuff that I am working on right now. I got to go over the risers and fallers from yesterday for the offensive line, and then I've got a couple other projects in the work of some guys who may not be getting the attention they should after the combine that are still kind of in that sleeper category. And then some guys that may have been sleepers prior to the combine, but aren't anymore because of how much attention they're getting for what they did. So keep an eye out for that on milehuddle.com. But I'm doing well. Glad to be here. Glad to be talking about the combine yet again. We did this on Friday and I did morning, and I did it Friday night with Chad, and hope everybody in the chat's having a wonderful Monday morning.
Yeah, they certainly are. Loving seeing everybody in here. We got Dave Glassman in here with the hearts. Good to see you. We got G Bear as well. Says good morning, Nick and Eric. Who are some guys you are worth giving a second round look after the combine that surprised you? I mean, I guess I got to go back and check out a little bit more. A guy that I liked coming into the draft, but he tested much better than I thought, was Eli Raridan. Obviously, the big part with him, tight end Notre Dame, is going to be the medicals more than anything. But I didn't expect him. I thought he was going to run in 4'8", 4'9", Eric, 6'7", kind of lumbering, but he moved pretty well. And then there is, of course, a number of safeties and wide receivers that really tested pretty darn well in this class overall. And one more, I'll give a shout out here. You might be out of the range I feel comfortable with, but Mike Washington Jr., running back from Arkansas, to be that big, and what was it, a 4.33, Eric? I mean, for that
Yeah.
size, he didn't necessarily show the home run ability, but I mean, my goodness, it's at least there testing wise with his body type too. So yeah, a lot of good athletes. Those guys are making me go back and do a second look.
Yeah, I mean, Raridan, he had a great day at the combine. The medicals are the key there. He's probably moved himself into that, round 3, round 4 conversation. Going in from what I've kind of gathered that he was probably more of that round 4, round 5. But again, the medicals are what's so critical for him. Mike
Yeah.
Washington Jr., he had that, not just the 40-yard dash, which for running backs, 10-yard split is more important. The overall 40 is more important for those smaller guys that are supposed to be those home run hitters. But the fact that he ran what he did in the 40, I mean, it stands out. It's still important. The 10-yard switch is a little more important. He had a great time there and had great explosion testing. That is that 10-yard split. That's the vertical jump. That's the broad jump. And that answers some questions with him that were there on tape. From what I've gathered, and I mean, I talked about it before. I question that explosive ability and that burst. You don't see that very consistently on tape. It looked more if it was by design of the running scheme. But man, there's a lot of guys. Trying to think of some other players that really stood out off the
Sam
top of my
Roush,
head. Sam Roush stood out with his testing, but I mean,
drills. You're talking drills. Ryan
um,
Branch looked better than I thought he would. He looked more
no, I
comfortable
mean
as
for
a
Sam Roush for the testing, it stood out because of when you adapt it for his size with how tall and long he is. He did well in those regards. I mean, it doesn't look good on paper. I mean, a 4.8 40 on the I think is what it was on the with that, but he had a good 10-yard split and the flying 20 was pretty good as well. But the drills is where he really did well. Zachariah Branch probably had the best gauntlet of all the receivers, although Jacoby Lane was up there as well. One guy that's gonna have there's a couple guys that you're gonna be taking a second look because of how poorly they did. One of them is actually probably going to be Mekhi Lemon, who there's a lot of stuff coming out about how bad he did in the interviews as well.
Yeah. Yeah, he really stunk it up, sounded like, on that overall. But we'll see what happens with him. Yeah, there's a lot of people coming out saying he had one of the worst combine performances, even a team ending an interview early being like, yeah, we're done here, because he was so cantankerous to talk with. We got G Bear coming in here. Good morning. We got that one. Good to see you, G Bear. Chris Bell coming in here. Is Chris Bell the name of the wide receiver from Louisville too? Is that the Well, awesome. We might be drafting here. There's some rumors coming out. I kind of want, he says Chris Bell here. I kind of want Chris Bell wherever we can get him comfortably, not because of his skills, but because of his name. I should have read the comment first before commenting myself. Yeah, he's a tough one because the ACL injury. He's somebody who he's massive and runs well. I don't think he's doesn't have the best throttle, if that makes sense. I feel like he's a little bit, because he's so big, just the momentum. I mean, it's pretty rare for a guy to be able to stop when you're that big and explosive. But I mean, on the crossing routes, I mean, he's kind of a running back body playing wide receiver. So not really necessarily a natural separator as a route runner, but he's definitely gifted. And if he didn't tear his ACL, I think you'd be talking about him in the top 25, probably. We'll see. I mean, Denver's in a weird position with their wide receiver room. If they view him as a true first round grade besides the injury, and they are okay taking a redshirt year with a guy like that, I understand the process. I mean, granted, you are kind of maybe forsaking around 1 year, and that's kind of a hard sell on a rookie contract for a team that's in a contention window. But I mean, if you love the cat, it's a value position, and if he ends up being a great wide receiver, nobody's going to care. So yeah, he's one that rumors coming out. Broncos like him a lot.
I mean, and when you're talking about 62 overall, if he's there, all right, go for it. I mean, it's it's tough as you said. I mean, it's a 4-year deal that he's going to get, and he's basically going to be sitting out all of year one. There's some talk that he could probably be back by November, December, late November, early December. And the thing is that people didn't remember, and we kind of got some heat for talking about this last week, but George Paton and Sean Payton talked about a 3-year window when it comes to the draft. It's not just now; it's a 3-year window, and Chris Bell fits that 3-year window because you have Cortland Sutton. Yeah, they just gave him an extension, but it basically only cements him in Denver this year, and then you can moving on after that. And there's been some talk that they've been looking at trying to move on from Cortland Sutton. There was a report, I want to say, from Jeremy Fowler that kind of hinted at that Denver talked to the Philadelphia Eagles about AJ Brown, but those conversations circulated around AJ Brown for Cortland Sutton plus. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. So maybe they're looking at, if they don't land that guy, don't land Brown or another big guy in free agency where Sutton's part of the trade. Well, maybe it's now, all right, we'll look at Bell in second round, fits that 3-year window. We can move on, reset the contracts there, especially if you get another step out of Troy Franklin, if you get a step out of Pat Bryant and another step out of Marvin Mims with their development as receivers, then you can really look at doing that and resetting that contract with the guy who may not play as much as rookie year, if at all. And well, it's that 3-year window that George Paton and Sean Payton talked about.
People really gave us a hard time about that, Eric. That's news to me. Well, I mean, we took it from Sean Payton's mouth there, guys. So blame the boss, I guess, on that one. I also I believe as far as winning a Super Bowl, I know that Denver's in a window right now and they want to take advantage of the rookie contract, but not to the point where you're closing the window down the line. The best way to win a Super Bowl, and especially a single elimination tournament, and how much injuries can derail things, continuously knock on the door. I know we're in a window this 1 year, but how do you continue to contend 3, 5, 10 years from now? Like, obviously, you're not going to be trading picks right now because you are in a window. It's not like tear down now to build then, but like sustained success, add talent, and think about the long-term picture. Like, obviously, you want immediate ROI. I've said it on here 100 times, Eric. The most important factors for the improvement we are going to see from this team from 2026 to 2027 is players that are already here on the roster / filling in the gaps with some free agency. Like that's more about the 2026 draft. If you can get something from them, that's great. Obviously, you want to fill in the roster, but ideally, your draft is really becoming like core pieces for you. What's the 2026 draft? So you're talking 2028, 2029.
Yeah.
Like they're the identity pieces for your roster. So let's keep it moving here. We got Stephen Bumgarner. Good to see you. Mike Thompson in the house. Keith asked if I've ever been to Rosie's dinner in Aurora. I haven't yet, but he says it's good. Have to check it out. Hopefully, don't give me food poisoning. David comes in, says greetings to all you on this marvelous Monday. Good to see you. Appreciate you. Gator Gaming. Good morning. What's good? Robert Perez. Shout out to Robert. Also, not only coming in here, but clicking the thumbs up on the way in as well over on Facebook. Says good morning. Your hard work is greatly appreciated. May God bless you and yours. Well, you too, Robert. Stay healthy. Stay kind. Shiloh's in the house. Good morning, Nick and Eric and MHH fam. Shiloh, you got to let us know what your combine numbers are since you're going to be playing some football out up there in Minnesota. Dave Glassman says, Nick, are you squatting at least once a week? I'm trying to I do lower body, upper body, cardio, hit / core, total body, and then more flexibility, mobility. And then Saturday, I go on a long walk with the kid on my back, and he's pushing 40 pounds. The issue is that in Denver, it's so freaking flat, man. I can't get any incline, decline work when I'm wearing the weight vest or the kid because it's just flat. So gonna have to figure out something here as we get closer to mountain summertime. Tony comes in and says, a new mock I trust had the Pregnon, the Oregon guard, round 1. Yeah, he's interesting. There's the guy from Texas A&M who might be sneaking into the round 1 as well. We'll see about the two Utah guys. I always mix them up because their names are similar. Lomu and Fanu. One of them took center snaps, and people are like, oh, maybe he's center 1 in the class. So we'll see guard center. I don't know, but he apparently looked good snapping the football, Eric. But yeah, that end of you talk pick 28 through 40. That's typically where you start to see interior offensive linemen come off the board. Besides maybe in this class, the Penn State guard, who I don't want to butcher his name, Ioana, who might go top 16.
Yeah, it was actually very interesting to hear Daniel Jeremiah and Charles Davis talk about Pregnon from Oregon, and both of them made it very clear that he is closer to Vega Ione than a lot of people think. So he seems pretty cemented there as that guard too, with Chase Basantis, the Texas A&M kid, being kind of in that solidified in that second round. And after the workout, one of them made a comment about Pregnon sneaking into that late first, and that is one of those areas right there where Denver's picking with 30th overall. Spencer Fano, there's going to be a lot of talk about his arm measurements, but there is a lot of complaining coming out about the combine measurements. Max Ianakor is one of those guys, is one of the reasons why at the Senior Bowl he measured 5/8 longer with his arms than he did at the combine. And last year it was like 70% of the players at the combine who did the measurements at the pro day measured with longer arms. And at the pro day Senior Bowl, that's done by actual NFL scouts. At the combine, it's done by a singular NFL person. And there's a lot of complaints. And from what one of the ESPN guys came out and said was that NFL teams were asking for this NFL guy to basically be removed from doing that and having an NFL scout do it because of this variation here. So Spencer Fanu measured in with 32 1/8 inch arms. We'll see. The pro day is going to be something that's big for him. But one thing too with this is he should move inside. Teams are often taking the stance of we're going to let these players fail themselves inside, meaning they're going to let them fail at tackle, then move them in. And the other thing is he is very open to playing anywhere. That's why he was willing to take center snaps. He wasn't asked to. He just was willing to do it. He is fine playing anywhere, any of the 5 positions on the offensive line. That is something that wasn't seen from Will Campbell last year, and he went 4th overall. There is still a lot of love for Spencer Fano, even at tackle, from wide zone-based schemes in particular. And so we'll see what happens with him, but the pro day is going to be really big for him. Absolutely nailed it in the workout, though. Absolutely killed the workout.
Do you think he's the first offensive lineman off, or has Monroe Freeling jumped him now because he's just, prototype build and a little bit more scheme versatile?
I think that there is a chance that Monroe Freeling can be the first offensive line taken. I also think the Miami kid has a chance for that as well, but he's another one that all the talk is about moving him inside to guard, and that might see him drop a little bit. And he is viewed as also scheme dependent, but in the opposite direction, which is more gap power. And good news for him is that more teams are kind of going to that gap power based concepts than they are the wide zone. So that benefits him as well. So one of those 3, I expect to be the first one taken. I would expect them to be, and also be 3 of the first 4 taken, with Vega, Ioane being that 4th one thrown in there somewhere.
I know a lot of people I respect doing the draft work have been saying 8 offensive linemen in the top 30. So we'll see. Good to see Paul in the house. Michael Ronquillo, of course, as well. Shiloh comes in. Eli Stowers, first rounder after the combine, somewhere after pick 25. It's round 2, no later than 40. Again, I don't think he's a tight end. For me, he would play the little Jordan Humphrey role. Now, granted, there's value there, but excuse me, it doesn't offer you the inline ability at all. Like, you have to be, when you're that poor of a blocker, you have to essentially be able to beat cornerbacks with your routes in man coverage, because they're going to play you with cornerbacks. So, like, why would if they're treating you like a wide receiver and you don't bring the benefit of a blocker as a tight end, you better be able to cook them like a wide receiver. And I think he's athletic enough. You're talking about that possibility for him out there. I was really happy that he sat out the bowl game versus Iowa, which, you could feel that lack of punch that they had in their pass game without him. But yeah, he's interesting to me. Again, I'm just so out on I'd rather have 2 Ys out there at this point, Eric, just to change the angles and force teams into base. I kind of am viewing it a little bit like chess. I don't know if I've used this analogy with you, but like, I feel like an early chess player is like, how can I best use my bishop? And really, you should be thinking about the spatial, the space of the board, and how you can manipulate your opponent's moves to attack certain areas of the field. So it's not like, how do I use my bishop? It's, how do I open up this area? And that's how I feel about explosive plays and usage of all your pieces to try to target certain areas of the field. Explosive plays are key. You get those more with base personnel, but it's only if they're matching, or you get that more with like tight ends and whatnot on the field, but it's only if they're matching with single high cut shells, stacked boxes, heavier personnel. How can I get linebackers on the field? If they're not going to match your tight end with linebackers, I'd probably rather play the wide receiver. But Stowers is, again, a good enough athlete. Maybe he does blur that line. It's rare.
Yeah, I mean, the comparison that's being thrown out about him from a lot of people I talk with is the Utah kid who went to Buffalo a couple years ago, Dalton Kincaid.
Yep.
That's that comparison that's being made there, and Kincaid has really struggled to make a consistent impact in the NFL, and he's had some big games, but it's that consistency, because he is struggling to do basically exactly what you've done with how teams are playing him. And so can Stowers do the same? I mean, it was a great combine from him. I think that he definitely helped himself, but does he crack the top 32? I mean, we'll have to wait and see with that. The pro day is also going to be pretty big for him, because I don't remember him doing any of the drills, and the blocking drill is one of the ones that you kind of look at and just kind of see how much is there in terms of the technique to try to build off of, more so than, where they're at right now. And so he didn't, I'm pretty sure he didn't do any of the testing, because I don't remember him with that drill. And so it's got to wait till the pro day for it. I definitely think he is probably in that 35 to 50 conversation right now, but to get into the top 32, that's going to come down to the pro day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You are 1,000% correct on that. Overall, a pretty good combine, Eric. I know that there's a few guys who didn't do that well. I knew Lemon really struggled. I know that Price didn't have the best time. I think you probably Granted, the combine shouldn't totally make or break, but he was already kind of like, again, I was saying like, trade down to 50 and maybe the conversation starts. You're talking about end of round 3 for Price, which you're probably right. But he didn't have the greatest combine. Was there anybody else who really struggled? And one thing I also want to get to, Eric, just bigger picture. I think RAS, relative athletic score, maybe it's broken things a little bit with the NFL Combine, because the only people testing are the ones who are good at the tests, and we are not getting, if you know you're going to be 50th percentile, 60th percentile in agilities, the jumps, you're not doing it. So it's like, is this really like the most athletically gifted class ever? All these people one after one. I don't think so. I think the specifications of like, these guys are training earlier for the combine. They're better and more specific in their training. And also they're not testing if they're not going to do well at the same time. So I think a lot of this, again, 10 overall unofficial best athlete, one of 1,000 at the wide receiver position, grain of salt. That is he a good athlete, a great athlete? Yeah. Best ever at the wide receiver position? I don't know. I don't know about that. I think, again, a little bit of a grain of salt. And also, there's other issues with the process, like it weights all the tests the same, where like position by position, some are going to matter a lot more than others. So again, just food for thought. I was like, oh my God, everybody gets so excited about this class. Tape's still king at the end of the day. And I think there's a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Something that bumps up the scores a little bit, just with the reality of where we are at in terms of the pre-draft process.
Yeah, and on that note, I saw a lot of hype going over for one of the running backs, I think it was, who had a decent 40-yard dash. I mean, it was outside of quarterbacks, every single position group had the fastest average ever at the 40-yard dash, and quarterbacks was second fastest. So it really fast group. But in terms of the RAS specifically, there's a lot of hype going around for one running back who ran well. I think it was like a 4.45, 4.46, somewhere around there. But his 10-yard split was well below what you want, especially for a running back of his size. He's one of the smaller guys. And that was very concerning. It might have been Jadarian Price. I know it wasn't Emmett Johnson, who had a slow 40 and had a slow 10-yard split. And there's a lot of concern coming around about him as well. But yeah, RAS is a little bit broken. I wish it weighed, those ones that correlate a little bit more to NFL success, the ones that are a little bit more important. Like for offensive linemen, it's not the 40, it's the 10-yard split. That's what matters. That should be weighed more heavily than the 40. So that is something. And then going to Jadarian Price specifically, since you brought him up, it was a rough showing. And during the drills, he was one of like about 10 or so running backs that was doing this into their jump cuts, where you go to set and plant and cut. They were gathering themselves and doing this little like 2-foot bunny hop and then cutting off of that. And I was actually really curious about that. Something I've seen, occasionally, but this was the first time it was like more than like one or two guys. And it's maybe, I mean, when it's that much, it's got to be something that they're being coached to do. But you're taking away all that forward momentum, you're bringing it to a stop, and you're doing that to gain a little bit more lateral momentum and a little more lateral burst. And it may not be the best transition, and it was really choppy with them because they all didn't necessarily have that instant acceleration to take advantage of it after they did, to get back up and going. So that was really concerning with his, and the other running backs that did it as well. I think Emmett Johnson was one, and they're not doing this just when the running drills, they were doing it in the receiving drills as well. Like when they would go to, the Texas route, when they go to make that cut, they would go and do that bunny hop into the cut and make the cut off of it. And it threw off some of the timing with the routes there. And then Mekhi Lemon, not to hound on him too much, we talked about him earlier with the interviews, but the on-field drills, he had some bad luck with the placement of the throws. And from what I've gathered, and at one point you can hear him during the broadcast kind of chirping about the throws. I can't repeat the language that he used, but he was definitely making it known that he was not happy with the quarterbacks, and teams pay attention to that, and didn't help himself there either.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Well, we are going to be ending the show relatively soon here, unless Dylan and Eric want to run a mock as I get out of here at 7:15 or whatever. It is Monday, but just, reality of adulthood and getting the kid out the door with wife having a doctor's appointment. So we got some more in here. Thank you, Shiloh. Good to see you coming in here. Tony saying about Freeling, interesting one. Yeah, his floor. Curious about your thoughts on the offensive lineman that maybe the Broncos might be looking at, Eric, since yesterday was offensive lineman. I think Caden Proctor had the best vertical jump of a player of his weight ever. I don't think anybody over 330 had jumped that far before, and he did it at like 350 something. So, like, obvious athlete out there. And then also Max Ianachor. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. If it's wrong, let me know. But he also had a pretty good combine as well. Either of those guys at 30, depending on obviously character and everything, especially with Caden Proctor, like what makes him tick, said as a bitter, jaded Iowa fan with everything that he did with Iowa during his time. But both of those guys, athletically speaking, are certainly in play if they're there at 30, in my opinion.
Yeah, Ian Akor also, again, he's one of those guys that arm length is being questioned about the combine with how it's measured. He's one of the big reasons for that. But he did well with the athletic testing, and he did really well with the drills as well. And the drills are very important. Like, this is something that teams are using to really get a idea of where these players are, and a technical aspect of it. And there's been some questions about Ian Akor's overall, technical foundation that he has, and he really answered a lot of questions there. Proctor was a little bit more rough in the drills, but from what I gathered from what Daniel Jeremiah he touched on it, that teams are really talking to him in the interviews more so about his diet and the nutritional aspect of it. And he was getting at that because he was having issues there more so in 2024 of being closer to 400 pounds than he was, 350. In fact, I think Daniel Jeremiah even flat out said at one point he was over 400 earlier in the season of 2024. And it was very obvious. So that's a big focus for them, what they're going to do there. But yeah, there was a lot of offensive linemen that stood out. A lot of guys that are still kind of under the radar with it. We talked about Pragnon earlier with out of Oregon. There is a guy out of I can never remember if it's Arkansas or Oklahoma. I'm pretty sure it's Oklahoma, but Weewu is how you pronounce his last name, and he was really doing well in the drills and really caught my attention. He was one of the cleaner technical guards in the drill work.
Heck yeah. It's a decent draft for the non-premium positions in the early rounds, but also day two. I mean, Broncos country wants a linebacker. You might have some turnover at safety coming up here, interior offensive line at guard turnover here. I think day two, maybe early day three too. Jennings Dunker, not going to be a tackle, but I thought did well enough. You're probably talking round 3 there. He's certainly interesting. Your guy, Eric, he might go round 2. Georgia Tech, Rutledge. I'm really impressed with him. He kicks some serious butt. So impressed with all those guys there in the draft. I think one thing that Broncos country coming out of the combine, a lot of them are going to be bummed about this, no doubt. But I think Kenyon Sadiq coming out of the combine, granted, he's not massive. I don't know if again, not a true Y, but there are probably only 12 to 14 true Ys in the NFL at any given point. I would take 2 of them, like I said, but he tested freakishly and he tested not tiny. So I think he's somebody who's going to end up going top 16 now. And if he was at 30, yeah, absolutely take him. But trading up for a tight end, you want to give up Pat Bryant, to go up and get a tight end when how many tight ends are actually needle movers in the league for an unknown? I don't think the math, it's not worth the risk. Because you just don't know with somebody like him, especially with his injuries, but he had a great combine. I just think we can probably put that one to bed for Broncos country.
Yeah, and Daniel Jeremiah basically, he came out and said his floor has become, early 20s. And I can't remember what point it was. It was like 22 or 23. I think it was 22. It's wherever the Chargers were picking.
Chargers. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was they specifically brought that up. Rich Eisen did. But yeah, he had a great showing. I found it funny that he set the record for the vertical jump for tight ends, only for Eli Stowers to break it. Might have been the broad jump, just 2 jumps later. I just found that a little bit funny, but he had a really good day. Also didn't go through the position drills, which there were a lot of eyes on him for the blocking aspect of it, seeing what he could do on the sled. Nate Borkircher out of Texas A&M, man, he probably had one of the best drill days for a tight end. Speaking of Weiss specifically, Sam Roush, however, his gauntlet, ugly. Like the hands are not natural. Borkircher doesn't have a lot of catches on it, but he did really well on the gauntlet. I think he had 1 drop in the whole thing, but he wasn't fighting himself. He wasn't fighting his hands to make the catch like he saw with Sam Roush. And then the USC kid, Lake McCree, he is one that's getting a lot of talk and chatter now about helping himself tremendously at the combine, both in interviews and the athletic testing and the on-field drills, as a guy who just absolutely killed it in all phases and has probably put himself into that top 150 conversation.
Man, yeah, it's I'm really excited to see what happens here. We're definitely in the thick of things now. We got Kyle coming in, says, talking about my Iowa guys. Wampa had a good combine, speaking of safeties. He did. The issue with him is that he's just so freaking linear. Think David Bruton. You know, like you love him on special teams, and like the testing for Bruton, if you remember coming out, was great. If you ask him to like drop his hips and flip his hips and be like fluid in phase and coverage, he's gonna get cooked on a double move. But like as your 3rd, 4th safety and a core 4 special teams gunner, dude is gonna play in the league for a decade. I mean, he lays wood and he's physical and he's so explosive linearly. It's just I don't know if he actually has the coverage chops and fluidity. I mean, you see it in red zone. If he ever gets isolated, there's a lot of space pretty quickly generated by whoever's tight end, the wide receiver, doesn't matter. So again, tested well, core 4 special teamer.
Tested well, did awful in the drills because exactly what you said. He doesn't have the change of direction. He's not that fluid mover that you're really looking for in safety. He's a straight line guy, and I mean, you got to have some change of direction ability to really see time on special teams outside of emergencies, or on defense outside of emergencies. He's probably going to be a special teams player only.
A good one. I think he's going to be a good one.
Oh yeah, he'll be a good one. But there wasn't a single drill that he did where there was a positive note, and that's very concerning. Again, drills carry a little bit more weight, but he's a straight line guy, which is great for special teams, particularly gunners.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really liked your tweet about Weekgen yesterday, Eric. I don't know if we want to share that on here.
The chat comment that I had, yeah. Weekgen is very kicked up. His behind arrives 5 minutes after he does. Man, like it was just watching him run the 40 was just hilarious to me with it. Not as bad as what we got a couple days prior though from them, and man, that one we won't get into.
Yeah, he's him and Kim Kardashian maybe related. I don't know, but he had a pretty good combine overall. Not like the most. I thought he'd have a little bit more speed, but his fluidity and change of direction for his like squatty base. I mean, he's going to be a hell of a returner. Just because it's not always, I think a little bit more straight line speed gunner ability where there's a little bit more thickness and strength to him in the kickoff rules and punt return. So he's definitely going to be interesting day 3. The final 5 minutes here before I get out of here, I'll kick it over to Dylan. Maybe you guys can run a mock if you want. Any big Broncos news coming out? From what I've gathered, talking with people on the ground, music to my ears. Maybe some people will be upset about it, but this is also coming from dinners and whatnot. But Broncos are very much in a BPA at 30 situation overall. I think pretty much every position is possible now down the list, just because where the rooms are at, like edge and cornerback, you probably have to trade somebody to do that. But there's a reality where that could happen, I think, for this team. But you're most likely talking wide receiver, interior defensive line, maybe linebacker, maybe safety, and then offensive line. I've always preached an offensive line, but like coming out of the combine, depends on who's available. As always, best player available. But like, it sounds like this team is like, yeah, I think we're ready to make a big offensive line investment to keep the room strong and churning. Because again, it's that 3-year, 5-year, 10-year perspective, keeping the offensive line strong. Multiple big quotes from Sean Payton on that. Even if you don't get immediate year one ROI, ideally, because everyone stays healthy.
Yeah. And with that, it's not just about the conversations about where they're looking at in the draft. It's some of the conversations about that are coming out about free agency. There's been some connections being made to our guy in free agent running back, Tyler Algier. There's also been a lot of connections being made to David Montgomery, the Detroit Lions, with him looking for a trade and everything like that. So especially with getting at that Iowa State connection. Speaking of Iowa State connection, I've heard some stuff that maybe we got to change the conversation who we're talking about when it comes to tight ends.
Charlie Kolar.
Charlie Kolar. That's a guy that's going to be looked at. He was one of the 10 best blocking tight ends in the NFL last year. So conversations got to go there. So it's not just about the draft. It's about what comes out with potential free agent moves and stuff like that. But in that, with the draft specifically, with 30 going VPA, honestly, we can come to expect that. That's really what their focus is. They're going to eliminate a few positions. I think by the time we get around to the draft, they'll probably have 3, maybe 4 positions eliminated, as where they really want to go there. And that's going to be because they fill some of those big needs that they're looking at in free agency. Maybe that's where they go get that third safety, which is being talked about a lot. I mean, prior to Friday when they did defensive backs, Bucky Brooks specifically mentioned Dylan Thineman and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren for Denver specifically. Highlighted reasons that we've talked about on here with Brandon Jones' injury and his contract and PJ Locke being a free agent and looking for more playmaking ability on the back end to pair with Talanoa Hufanga. Safety seems, at least going into free agency, safety seems to be a very common player being talked about there 30th overall.
It'll be interesting. I mean, I don't think the Broncos have to go 30th overall because it is linebacker and safety are so freaking deep. And also you have the connection with the USC defensive backs coach coming in. Now, granted, they could take 2 in this class, but like the linebacker and safety, and it's fine if it's round 1. Again, like it's not a value position, but you're talking 30 overall. If you love the guy, like I always say, if it's the highest left on your horizontal board, I don't have an issue with it. But you're going to be able to get some guys. You know who I got to get out of here. It's time. The Arizona Cat. My God, I love him. I need to go back and watch the tape. He's had some injuries. Stukes.
Jaden Stukes.
Yeah. Oh, I know he's kind of a slot safety type, but like, boy, he is fun. He has energy too. So fun combine. Again, those positions, ideally Broncos take care of in free agency, and then you get a draft develop plan where you're talking 2027 takeover, cost control. Honestly, it's like ideally for your day 2 and a lot of this Broncos where they're at team wise, it's the Riley Moss path. First year, a few things here or there. Year 2 starting, the ROI on Moss on a rookie contract like that is exactly why you draft and develop. And the Broncos might be in a good position where they like can't pay him because they got so much other talent, especially paying PS2 that room. But like that's what keeps your roster young, talented, cheap, flexible. That's what I'm looking for right now. So I'm going to fly at 7:15. Dylan's going to come in here. You guys can talk a little bit more combine, any more rumors or anything like that. But I'll see you guys again tomorrow night. And yeah, stay out of trouble, Dylan and Eric.
Yeah, and speaking of Moss, as we get Dylan in here, well, Nick was sitting there talking about that. I'm pretty sure Moss got flagged for another defensive pass interference. So hopefully those guys that you go bring in don't get the penalties like he did. But Nick is absolutely right. I'm in agreement with him about Moss and the return of investment and that kind of being the path of getting them out in year 2 and really letting them get a little bit more on the field. Again, Sean Payton, George Payton, they've talked about it a lot with that 3-year window and with the way where Denver's at, especially with their contracts and the financials aspects of it. Still have to work around the cap space. $301.2 million cap space this year. Denver's sitting about 26-27 million to work with. Probably going to make more with some restructures, but you're also at that point where they're really looking at resetting those contracts. Brandon Jones, Ben Powers, Cortland Sutton, Mike McGlinchey, among others. That's kind of what we're looking at. But welcome in, Dylan. I hope you're having a wonderful Monday morning. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Did you by chance get to watch any of the combine at all?
I got to watch bits and pieces. My work schedule kind of conflicted with it, unfortunately. But I went back, looked at some numbers, looked at some performances, and A lot that I liked, a lot that I didn't like. You guys mentioned Mekhi Lemon earlier and how he bombed his interviews, and I'd do anything to get away from the Jets as well. I know he spent quite a bit, but obviously he went a little overboard if that was the objective there. But yeah, a lot to like, especially from the defensive line in general. I really liked what I saw from Caleb Banks, which unfortunately seems like he won't be making it to Denver. Was a really big fan of him. But yeah, defensive line in general and tight ends as well was a group that I really enjoyed watching.
Yeah, a lot of tight ends really had a pretty good day, and it was nice to see the guys that aren't getting talked about, like Lake McCree out of USC, kind of come in and step up and see what they can do. And it was unfortunate. Caleb Banks went in intending to do everything, but after he ran the 40 and did a little bit else, I think he did one drill before he backed out because his cleats were bothering him. He was having really a lot of issues with his cleats. So he ended up backing out. But it's one thing that I love with the defensive line in particular is seeing the different builds that they have on it. I mean, you have Daryl Jackson at 315 pounds, who is a slim and fit 315. And then you get him next to Lee Hunter, who is 318 pounds, and Lee Hunter looks like he's 340 pounds because it's a lot of bad weight, and it really does affect them. But a lot of these defensive linemen, they stood out. Grayson Holton, he had a great day. Zane Durant, Caden or not Caden. I can't remember the Southeastern Louisiana defensive lineman. Last name's Proctor. Caleb Proctor. I think his name, because Caden Proctor is the offensive lineman. I think it's Caleb. But I really can't remember off the top of my head.
Yep. Yeah.
And then there is also the guy, Tyler Idem. I can't remember how you pronounce his last name, out of Texas A&M, who solid day testing, but the drill work, man, it was great and a lot of fun to watch. And he's another one of those guys that the conversation's kind of shifted from, 150, 175, 200 in that range to maybe not top 100, but 100 through 125. That's where we maybe start having that conversation now.
Yeah, and defensive line is going to be important for the Broncos. Obviously, from what I've heard, they really haven't reached out to Franklin Myers yet, unless something's changed on that front, which very disappointing. I mean, he was pretty phenomenal for the Broncos this season, and him in tandem with Zach Allen and the rest of that defensive line is just it's what makes this defense hum for the most part. Obviously, the secondary is great as well, but they got off the quarterback pretty good, and Sean Franklin Myers is a big part of that. So whether it's round one or beyond, defensive line is something they're going to have to look at, because I'm not trusting Savion Jones just to slot in and magically replace John Franklin Myers, because he didn't really find any snaps last year. So going to have to pay attention to that position for sure.
Yeah, it really sounds like they're going to a Uwazurike Jones replacement there for him. And I've said this before, and I got a lot of backlash for it. There is a right way and a wrong way of doing things. And when a player is as impactful as John Franklin Myers has, to not even talk to him about a contract, not even see what he's willing to take, where he's at, what he's asking for, that is the wrong way about doing it. Even if you don't want to re-sign a player or extend him, you should still, with how impactful he was been, that's a caveat here. Obviously, guys who are less impactful, that's not the same. But with how impactful he is, you still want to reach out and just see, because there were some conversations in September and early December where he may have been willing to take a lot less to stick around in Denver because of how much he loves it there, how much he loves playing with these guys, playing in this defense, that we could have been talking about almost a 50% discount for him. And saying that now, because now the talk is from Jeremy Fowler just had this out in an article from ESPN just yesterday or the day before, where his asking price is probably upwards of 20 million. Well, in September and early October, the conversation that was being reported was that he was willing to take a lot less and under 15 million on an average per year basis from Denver to stick around. But that's out the door. Not even contacting him it's done. Like, he's not going to be he's not willing to take that, even if Denver now circles back at this point. Doesn't seem like he's willing, and that's really tough to see. But getting back to the combine, I really want to talk about the offensive line a little bit more, because they just went. And now that Nick's here, I can actually talk about the Iowa guys a little bit without inflating Nick's head too much. But man, that Jennings Dunker, he is something else. Like, he is a guy, played tackle at Iowa, but he isn't going to be a tackle in the NFL. He's going to be moved inside. And he is a guy that you're probably looking at 10, 15 plus years of high quality, at the very minimum, play out of him. A lot of comparisons being thrown out about to Brandon Scherf, another former Iowa offensive lineman. Obviously, Duncan's not going to go, I think, 8th overall like Scherf did, but he can have that same kind of impact for that same amount of years. And he's one of those guys that round 3, if you're looking for a Ben Powers replacement, and with his contract, you don't have to cut him right now. You can cut him later. You can let him see how he's going through camp, be one of those cut downs. Jennings Dunker to come in and compete with him and possibly take over left guard. I'm for that.
I'm in the same boat as you, and it's funny. Yeah, Nick, even before the season was over, he was sending me videos of Jennings Dunker, and rightly so. Like you mentioned, this dude's a beast, and just from the aura department, him playing opposite of Quinn Miners, like that's going to be a pretty crazy offensive line, and you kind of need that energy, you need that power. And while Quinn has been good for the most part, he struggled a little bit last year. Still got All Pro, which hey, good for him, and future contracts down the road. But just having those two at guard would seriously help out and continue the success of the Broncos offensive line, whether it be in the run or pass game.
Yeah, I mean, Gettings Dunker, even Bo Stevens kind of didn't have as good of a combine, but he did a really good job at the Senior Bowl. He's another one of those guys. He might be more one of those where you're keeping Ben Powers for the year and developing Bo Stevens as kind of that backup. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are very high on Alex Palczewski and what he can do to this. He made it very clear that he shouldn't be starting at left guard in particular. Maybe right guard would be different. Maybe right tackle would be different. But he just is off with his technique playing on the left side of it. He's never played on the left side before. He's always been on the right side. So that's a concern. And this is something that I've said before. A lot of offensive linemen have talked about it, and the NFL has broken this trend of where we have guys who can play both sides, or we have a swing tackle that plays both sides. It's more of we have a swing right side, we have a swing left side. And the reason for that is it is flipping your technique over. A lot of guys aren't comfortable with that. Imagine that you're right hand dominant, and now you have to do everything, including wipe your own butt with your left hand. It is weird, it's different, it's awkward, and you may not be as good at stuff with that. So that's the comparison being made there. Palczewski seems fine on the right side, left side's a little bit rough. And another guy, I know a lot of Bronco fans are wanting to move on from Luke Wattenberg, even though he just signed his extension. We're probably talking about that after this season, after 2027. So we probably got a couple of years, but center is one position that you can kind of draft and develop. And one guy who stood out here in terms of that kind of a little bit draft and develop guy at the center position, Pat Coogan out of Indiana. I am not entirely sure he has it to start his rookie year. I think he definitely needs a little bit of a year for that. Not like Jake Slaughter, who I think can come in and start right away, who in terms of Slaughter, he's been praised as probably one of the brightest people in not only in this class, but in the last few years when it just comes to general football knowledge. One comment that I heard, and then I saw this also on Twitter from, I can't remember who it is. One of the other big draft guys, used to be with the Draft Network, but left, came out and said that Jake Slaughter, that they were told that he is smarter than some NFL head coaches when it comes to just general football knowledge. Those are two guys that I definitely wouldn't mind Denver taking a look at. Jake Slaughter is probably round 4. I think Pat Coogan might be more round 5. But if you're not comfortable with Luke Wattenberg living out that contract extension, you can look at a center.
Yeah, and it's absolutely smart to get out in front of those kinds of things, especially when it comes to offensive line. I was a little surprised when they gave Luke Wattenberg the money, but he was playing very well up until his injury. But yeah, like you mentioned, if you want to take a Jake Slaughter or any other center, it's would be good to do it now. I mean, start developing the guy now, get his chemistry going with the team, and just plan for the future in case there is, for some reason, a drop off with Wattenberg, or you just feel you can save some money and just plug and play a guy who's sitting behind him. So got to keep the trenches strong on both sides, but especially offensive line with how amazing they've been, in addition to Bo Nix helping them out with his mobility.
Yeah, and it was great to hear George Payton talk about the trenches, and I think Sean Payton as well, that your way to sustain success in the NFL is in the trenches, which we have Kyle coming in saying, who are you liking for big run stuff for defensive tackles? There are a lot of nose tackles here, and this is another one where through a 3-year window, you just signed DJ Jones to an extension last year, Malcolm Roach just a few months ago. Well, DJ Jones's contract, with the way it's structured, you can get out of it after this year, reset that contract, get younger, get cheaper, and there are some awesome nose tackle prospects in it. The interior defensive line class is definitely carried by those nose tackles. In this, where I had like 15 of 22 of my nose tackles getting selected to participate in the combine. And out of my like nearly 90 other interior defensive linemen, these are 3 to 5 technique guys, 15 of them got selected to the combine. So that speaks to how strong this nose tackle class is. But Dominic Orange, he didn't participate at the combine, but I've heard some good stuff from him about him in terms of interviews. Nickname, Big Citrus. Absolutely love it. He's the guy that I like for them. If they want to take more of a developmental guy a little bit later, trying to capitalize on his rare size. I mean, a lot of talk about Caleb Banks, but Xavier Harris out of Mississippi, Ole Miss, he's another guy who 6'6", 330 pounds, long arms, very raw technical wise. And there's some other concerns there with him as well that you kind of got to work to develop. But he's another guy, probably round 6, round 7, really, for Xavier Harris that you're looking at, that I would not mind at all in trying to take and develop as a potential DJ Jones replacement.
Yeah, and you got other guys like I like Christian Miller quite a bit. Lee Hunter was pretty disappointing. I know he was kind of blew up during Senior Bowl, but that was more so a day or two of practice. Yeah. We mentioned Darrell Jackson already, but yeah, Caleb Banks has always been kind of my guy in terms of defensive tackle. But again, not sure he makes it to Denver. But hey, the draft is weird. You never really know. Some guys go where they're supposed to, not. And no matter how many mock drafts you see put out there, we never really know what's going to happen. So maybe you do get a guy like him to fall and really help out this defensive line and get a big man up the middle to take up blocks and stop the run.
Yeah. Kyle, I'm not sure who you are talking about here. So if you want to clarify in the chat, we'll get to that. But we have Keith coming in saying, where do you think Taylon Green will land, the quarterback from Arkansas, who set records? Another record-setting performance at the combine. Set the record, I believe, for the vertical broad jump, and then tied Michael Vick from in the 40-yard dash, I believe is why it was, for the fastest for the quarterback position. Absolutely killed it in the athletic testing, which makes it difficult to project where he's going to go, because this isn't a great quarterback class. But there are a lot of veterans that are expected to hit the market. I mean, we're talking about Kyler Murray. There's a lot of talk that he's going to be getting cut. Tua Tagovailoa about getting cut. Kirk Cousins is getting cut. It's just a matter of when. Geno Smith, there's a lot of talk about him getting cut. And there's like 2 more veterans that are talking about that. There's a lot of talk about being cut that have a lot of starting experience in the NFL. There's a lot of teams that are also calling the Carolina Panthers for Andy Dalton, who has a ton of experience as a starter, to go get him out there. And when you're looking at that, you can see one of those teams that gets one of those guys back. All right, we'll start you for this year. We're going to bridge the boy. We're going to really try to develop this athlete and make him into a quarterback. It's a tough ask, because I got to say, during his drills, his placement was all over the place. I mean, there was a couple times where he was throwing 5-10 yards farther than his receiver, way over their head. And so a lot of issues there. And I'm pretty sure he was one of the ones where you definitely heard Mekhi Lemon kind of sound off about the throws and the placements of it with him. But he is a very intriguing one. I wouldn't expect him prior to day 3, but where on day 3, that's anyone's guess, because he is just a pure athlete at this point, more than a quarterback. And that just makes his projections so difficult.
Yeah, it's hard to see where a guy like him would land. Obviously, you mentioned more of an athlete than a refined quarterback at this point. Yeah, maybe you take a shot at him day 3. I'm not sure that's something Denver would do, just because I don't know. I think they'd get someone more similar to play style to Bo Nix. But hey, you never know, and a possible position change for him. Who knows with that height, weight, speed? I mean, who knows what could happen with Taylor Green? But the draft is weird, and as we say, day 3, you're throwing darts, and if it takes one coach to be like, hey, I think I could maybe develop and turn this guy into something, and eventually, hey, if we don't want to keep him, we could maybe flip him for picks. That's always something smart you should do. Take quarterbacks every year. Who cares?
Yeah, and don't ever underestimate a coach's ego and their ability to develop a player. Time and time again, they will bet on athletes because athleticism can translate, and you can't teach athleticism. You can teach the football stuff. You can't teach size, can't teach athleticism. Another guy real quick at quarterback who kind of had the issue, and I feel bad for the receivers in the group that he was in, because in the gauntlet they had him being that first throw where you jump open to the field and you catch it. Cole Payton, the left-hander where the ball spins differently, out of all the receivers, I think maybe 5 guys caught that first pass just because they weren't adjusted to it. And then I really feel bad because I think Jacoby Lane they were doing a post route, and Jacoby Lane had to track the ball over his shoulder from Cole Payton, and he couldn't find it because the angle was so different. So I felt a little bad for him, but he's another guy, really good athlete, and it was very clear that the talk around him is changing positions, not being really a quarterback in the NFL, and everybody should know where this is going. Who's that quarterback that that athletic quarterback that didn't play that played quarterback but also played other things for Peyton in New Orleans? Taysom Hill. That's comparison being made to Cole Payton ever since the Senior Bowl.
And maybe Sean Payton wants another tool like that. I know I believe Taysom Hill's a free agent. Absolutely miss me on that. I'm good. But if he thinks he can get a much younger player to come and do that, that'd be awesome. And here, I just want to grab this from Shiloh. He's coming and saying, DV, I didn't know Mendoza went to Cal before watching Endry's highlights. Are you glad to see him succeed even after leaving? I saw Mendoza succeed after leaving, Endry's as well. Jay not so much. He didn't really get used that much in Oklahoma, but it was very bittersweet because I knew how good of a quarterback he was. I didn't think he would rise to the level that he did this season with Indiana, but man, it was awesome to see him move on and have success. And I do need to make it to a Cal game one of these times. I'm like an hour away, but life scheduling and all kind of gotten in the way. So maybe sometime soon here. I do love JKS. I'm not going to say his whole name, but the quarterback for Cal, he's going to be a big name in the next couple of years. People got to pay attention to.
Yeah, and then Kyle came in, clarified, talking about Zane Durant. Tested well athletically. Drills kind of showed that a little bit more linear of a player. He really struggled with the movement, with the figure 8 drill that they do, and then the cornering drill that they do, which defensive tackles, they're going to struggle in the corner drill. They're going to struggle in this drills a little bit. But even when comparing him to other tackles, you can still see that he was a little bit on that stiffer side. But Dylan, before we get out of here, is there any final players that you want to bring up and have a quick chat about?
Man, there's a handful. Like obviously Kenyon Sadiq has kind of solidified himself as not falling to 30. I mean, I had a lot of questions about it happening before, but man, just that athletic testing, and he just absolutely killed it. And he's definitely going to go high. And unfortunately, you've been hearing those rumors to the Chargers, which would really suck. But hey, is what it is. I liked a lot what I saw from the linebacker group as well. Jeremiah Trotter, obviously the guys who are going to be out of our reach. Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese, those guys, oh my God, absolutely amazing. But definitely not going to get a shot at them. But beyond that, safeties like Thieneman, I was familiar with him before. And then once I saw him go through the drills and the athletic testing and whatnot, I'm a much bigger fan than I was, and I think he's definitely an option at 30 should he be there.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of options and for Denver, and they have a lot of different ways to go. Gatorade Game and asking no mock draft. Unfortunately, no. I'm no offense to Nick. I don't like doing mock drafts every single week. We just kind of end up getting into the same kind of loop for the most part. So I'll talk to Nick. Maybe we'll do one Friday. Maybe we'll do one next Monday. But yeah, just didn't want to do one this week. I really wanted to talk about the combine, and go off of that. And so maybe Friday, maybe that's at a point where we can do that, post combine mock draft. And by that point as well, the mock draft simulator should have their stuff updated to reflect some combine stuff as well to try to make it a little bit more accurate. Even though accuracy with mock drafts is non-existent. But anyways, that's going to have to do it for us today. I want to thank you all for jumping in on this fine Monday morning. As always, you guys can follow us on Twitter. You have myself at Erick Trickle, and at Dylan Von Arks MHH. Couldn't remember exactly what it was. As you can see, scrolling through it, super chats on YouTube, stars on Facebook are a good way to help us. Make sure you guys subscribe, like, and share. It's one way to help us get around and fight the algorithms that are ever changing, ever being headaches. You guys can go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Just takes a matter of time. Even if you're not listening to us on there, you have on Android, you can go to Spotify. Obviously on iPhones, you can go to Apple Podcasts and just leave a 5-star review. It really helps us there as well. Make sure you guys join the MHH Discord server. The link is in the description down below. You guys can get part of the conversation that goes on there. Follow us on Instagram at Mile High Huddle with an underscore between Mile and High and Huddle. MHH merch, you can get hats like the one that I have on. I got to get around to getting me a Broncos for breakfast hat at some point. You guys can join the wonderful Facebook communities as well at Mile High, Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod, Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. You can follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle, at MHH Pod, and at whatever the Broncos for breakfast Twitter account is. I can never remember, but thank you all for joining in again on this Monday morning. Thank you, Dylan, for stepping in as Nick went out of here. Before we get out of here, any last words?
Yes, just as it pertains to player visits and meetings, teams have met with most players that are at the combine and whatnot. I wouldn't take too much from it. Top 30 visits, kind of the same. I know we're going to start getting into that in the next month or so. It doesn't necessarily mean the Broncos are going to draft them. See Patrick Surtain, see the last entire draft class. I don't believe they drafted one player that they met with in a top 30 visit. So just keep that all in mind.
Yeah, I mean, so they have the only 45 formal interviews. Those are the 30-minute interviews. I can't remember how long they are. And then they do informal interviews where they're just walking through the hall and they pull a guy off to the side real quick and have about 10, 15-minute chat with him. They talk with everybody at the combine. Combine interviews are pointless. Senior Bowl, I know a lot of people talk about it was like, oh, at the Senior Bowl, they met with this guy. At the Senior Bowl, they specifically set it up where every team meets with every player. Same at the Shrine Bowl. Those are completely meaningless. Tech and visits, also, you never know what they mean for this year. Last year, they used those visits particularly to answer questions, either medical or character, and or talk about teammates of theirs that they were interested in. I know they brought in multiple Texas guys for it, and after the draft, talking with Jahdae Barron, I think it was Jahdae Barron who made a comment along the lines of like, some of my teammates, they were telling me that a couple teams were asking them about me and how I am in the locker room. So teams use those interviews for different things every single year. Not a lot we can take out of it, but that's going to do it for us today. I will be back Friday morning. Dylan, hopefully at some point you can get your work schedule figured out so we can get you back on your show with Ron. But thank you guys for joining us. Hope you guys have a wonderful Monday. Stay safe out there. Choose kindness and compassion. And of course, go Broncos.